So President Trump is rolling back anti-discrimination protections for trans people. Here's what Time magazine says. On Wednesday, the Department of Housing and Urban Development announced it intends to reverse the requirement that operators of homeless shelters receiving housing department funding have to, quote, provide equal access to programs, benefits, services, and accommodations in accordance with an individual's gender identity. The policy change would allow men's and women's shelters to segregate transgender people where allowed by state and local laws. It would also allow shelters to consider a person's sex when determining whether an individual will be admitted to the shelter. On Friday, the Department of Health and Human Services published a proposal that would reverse an Obama-era rule that defined discrimination, quote, on the basis of sex to include gender identity. The draft rule would amend regulations that identify sexual orientation or gender identity as prohibited basis for discrimination for programs funded or administered by the department. So, in layman's terms, what this means is they've rolled back anti-discrimination protections for trans people, and they want it to be perfectly legal to discriminate on the basis of gender identity. So, you can be rejected. So let's say there's a homeless shelter, and it's a very religious homeless shelter. That's not unheard of. In fact, that's relatively common to have religious shelters. And they have a disagreement with, the LGBTQ community. They're not in favor of that community. Well, you show up and you're a trans person, it would be legal for them to reject you. Say, no, we don't serve your kind here, so go away. That's what they want to make legal. That's what they're making legal. And listen, this is substantively, materially wrong. This is saying that the foundation of the Civil Rights Act should not apply on gender grounds. And, what they're saying is it's fundamentally different to discriminate against trans people, and there is no comparison to discrimination based on religion, to discrimination based on skin color. And that is something I fundamentally reject, and I totally disagree with. And you know who else used to disagree with this? Donald Trump. Remember this lovely moment? I remember people trying to tell me that this shows that he's going to be pro-LGBTQ. I said, listen, it's policy is what matters. I don't give a fuck how he virtue signals to the world about, who's on his side or whatever, or whose side he's on. I care about substantively, what are you doing? And he picked Mike Pence as VP. What do you think's going to happen? You think Mike Pence is going to, let this administration go in a much more libertarian direction on social issues where, you're in favor of live and let live? No way. So Trump, back when he was campaigning, told the Today Show that Caitlyn Jenner could use any bathroom that she wanted in Trump Tower. He also said, he tweeted it, that he would be better for LGBTQ Americans than Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's such a separation between the shit he says and then the shit he does. Though to be fair, like Hillary Clinton, he was well known for saying everything at the same time. He was well known for taking two contradictory positions on every issue. And then people would just read into him and project onto him what they want him to believe. And that's what happened on this issue. So now, on top of the trans military ban, which I think that's, if somebody can meet the requirements, the physical requirements to being in the military, of course they should be allowed in. The idea you do a blanket ban of trans people, that's dumb, and that is quite literally the definition of bigoted. You're saying this one group, no, this group is not fit for that, and I don't care about the individual merits. I'm not going to judge you on the individual merits. I'm going to judge you as a group, as you're part of a group, and the group qualities all are your qualities and vice versa. So, we're going to draw a hard line here. Pretty ridiculous. Well, now, again, they're doing that same approach when it comes to anti-discrimination protections. Get rid of the anti-discrimination protections, and then you hide behind religious liberty and personal choice. That's oftentimes their dodge. They say, no, this isn't anti-trans. This is pro-personal choice and religious liberty. So if this guy happens to run a homeless shelter and he's a bigot towards homeless people, towards trans people, who are you to say that he shouldn't be able to reject a trans homeless person? We've had these arguments going back to the civil rights days, and yet we're having them again now. The idea that they shouldn't be a protected class is pretty silly, considering they do face a pretty substantial amount of discrimination. And I would imagine it's hard being a trans person and just, getting through regular life without people maybe giving you a hard time. I'm sure there are many people who are kind and are open-minded and tolerant, but I'm sure there's plenty of people, more old school folks, who just are like, fuck off. And Trump wants to embolden the fuck off people, and that's now crystal clear.